there it was, 4 a.m. up on the dot, and then I'm out driving by 4:30, coffee ready, and I'm at the beach by 5 a.m. Okay, get there and I realize that there are a ton of surfers there and there are a ton of hikers and a bunch of other people. The beach is packed. Tell me why everyone's awake at 5:30, 6 a.m. But you know what, it's no problem. I'm just there to check out the scenery, just to make sure that this spot is going to be okay to film Plunder. Day 2, I'm up again, and this time I am going there on a weekday, assuming that it's going to be way less busy than before. I get there, everything is perfect, the sun starts slowly creeping in. So there I am, I have the ships ready, I have the compass ready, and I have all these components laid out on the beach, ready to film, only to realize that I don't have a plan. And this is why you storyboard. Hello, welcome back to the channel. Today, I am breaking down the cinematic showcase that I did on Plunder that was just released yesterday. And there is a giveaway going for that board game that is going to end on Wednesday this week, which is September 9th, so please don't miss out on that. If you're new here, I make these videos called cinematic showcases, and those are like 30-second to 1-minute videos really highlighting and stylizing a board game in a cinematic way. So today, if you're interested in the whole video production process, if you want to up your cinematography game, if you just want to understand or see like the whole behind the scenes process about this video, this is the video for you. So today I'm going to tell you why you should storyboard. I'm going to show you how to storyboard. And then I'm going to break down that whole cinematic sequence that I did step by step, scene by scene. And then lastly, just tie everything together. So it's going to be a fun video today, and I'm excited for you to be here. Now let's get started. Why should you storyboard? Okay, so here are 4 reasons why you should storyboard. Number 1, when you're filming, you actually plan a lot of your shots around nature. And the reason for that is because you don't want to be fiddling around with your camera settings and with all these components when you're at the location. You only have 35, 45 minutes, roughly an hour, right, for golden hour. And that's why there's a whole reason even designated for that photography filmmaking time slot, right? There's a whole reason why we call it golden hour, blue hour, because that is the best time of day to be shooting. So you want to optimize your conditions around being able to capture whatever you need in that very, very slim time frame. Because if not, and you miss it, then you have to wait an entire day, maybe even weeks, which has happened before actually in the Lords of Hellas, because when I missed that sunset for one day, I had to wait weeks because fog just kept rolling in day after day, and then just a bunch of things happened in between the first sunset that I went to and the second sunset, all because I missed that first one. So the last thing you want to do is struggle with everything while the sun is racing past you. So you increase the likelihood of making these buttery smooth transitions. All that is coming from a plan. Number 3, super simple one, you save a ton of time, right? If you have everything organized and ready to go, when you get there, you just cross off a checklist of I need this shot, and this shot, and then you're done. And number 4, it makes your entire video way smoother than without a plan, without a storyboard. Because now you can work out all like the kinks and little nuances that you can only have when you organize everything all at once. Versus filming a lot of nice shots, but then when you get to the edit, you realize that, oh shoot, I only have one specific angle for the box shot over here. Oh shoot, I only have this type of movement and I can't really transition from this to this because that's not gonna work properly. The worst thing is to be editing and regretting that you should have punched in for a shot when instead you should have punched out, or moved from this side instead of moving to that side. It just makes everything very messy and it doesn't flow like a well-oiled machine. So now the question is, well, how do you storyboard? And I'm going to use these cinematic showcases as a prime example and then give you a general overview. So this isn't the right way to storyboard. Everyone has their own unique process, and this is what works for me. The first thing I do is to actually think about the major transition. So for Plunder, that was the pirate flag transition. I wanted to get a scene where after I'm done with the beach and kind of introducing all of the components in the beginning, I wanted a pirate flag to be there, and then as it whips out, then it transitions into the studio shots to see how the game is played and how the components are interacting. So that was my major transition. It was going from the pirate flag to the beach to the pirate flag here at the studio. So in essence, I actually start in the middle of the video. And then step 2, I think about the hook. So the hook is the very beginning of the video. It's what captures and grabs your audience. This is the part where you are establishing the premise for the audience and introducing them to what the video is about. For me, I always start out with the box art, so it gives a general overview like, hey, this is about a board game, and this board game is called Plunder. It's also a very good point for you to establish a scene, so that's why I showed tons of shots around the beach and you see all the sand. You hear all like the ocean ambiance and seagulls. All of that is established within 10 to 15 seconds before we move on to the studio. And then step 3, I think about how to immerse the audience in your video, in the theme of the video. And then I started thinking about, well, how do I introduce the audience with a pirate theme within all these components? And that's why I started showing the ocean map with the ocean in the background, started showing the compass as I'm walking around, I started showing the storm and then having a real storm like as you punch through in that transition right there. So these are all details telling your audience like, hey, we're talking about an ocean here, we have a storm, we have a pirate ship, so now they're really getting involved in that theme. And then for these cinematic showcases, it's to really stylize and highlight what this board game is about. Yes, it's about the setup, yes, it's showing off the components, but it's also introducing and showing them, because you can't like have a voiceover, right? You're just introducing and showing them what the game mechanics are, which is very, very difficult, right? Instead of just telling them, hey, the ships are attacking here, well, how do I show that? So those are big questions that I always try to answer in these cinematic showcases. So to summarize, how do you storyboard for cinematic sequences or showcases? First thing I would do is think about the major transitions that you want to include. For me, it was a pirate flag going from scene to scene, right? So in this setting, I have the beach, and then in the next major setting, I have the studio office. So that's why I use a pirate flag to transition from the beach to the office right there, okay? So that's step 1. Step 2 is to think about your hook. What is your attention grabber? What is going to pull people into the video? And what is going to introduce the overall premise about what this video is about? So that's why I start off always with the box art. That way it tells people like, hey, this is about a board game. And now step 3, we start trying to immerse the audience and telling them about this overall theme that we are establishing. In this case, it is a pirate theme, so that's why we have the beach, we have the storm, we have sand, we have everything revolving around pirates. I know there's a lot more to it, like, treasure, X marks the spot, a compass, all those little details synchronized together in order to at least subtly hint that this is about a pirate game. And then lastly, think about the overall purpose and intention of your video. For these cinematic showcases, is to talk about what the game is about, what the mechanisms are about, how does the game play. So yes, we talk about the setup in the beginning, but then as we move on over to the studio, everything in there is revolving around how the game plays out. So here, arguably, is kind of the most difficult part, because now you're trying to show, not tell people about how the game is played. Compile all that together, and now you have painted a beautiful picture about what this board game is about, or what your intention of your video is. So lots and lots of thought go into a 30-second to 1-minute video, but the more thought you put into it, and the more organized flow that you have from the very beginning, then the better your video will turn out. So is that the right and only way to plan out a video like this? Absolutely not. There is no right way to doing this. It's just one creative way that I do it, and one way that I wanted to share with you in case it helps you out. Okay, so now let's break down the whole video step by step and see what went into this process, and let me break down the editing and just the whole behind the scenes story about the cinematic showcase. We're gonna do that right now. Okay, so first 3 seconds of the shot, you have box art. I will tell you now that I was so frustrated in the edit because, like I said, I didn't work out this part in the storyboard when I was doing it. So what I wished I did before was to actually get like one specific type of movement for each consecutive shot in the box art, instead of just getting one to the right and then one over and then one back. I just wanted nice consecutive shots of one specific movement. Left to right, left to right, left to right. I feel like it would have made the video much smoother, and there's a little bit of disconnect there in the beginning, so I wasn't a big fan of that. Fun fact, you can actually see one of the surfers here. I'll circle it right here in the video, but he's right behind the board just waiting for some waves. There's actually a whole school of surfers there, so I was kind of just waiting for them to swim out a little further. So this was around 6 a.m., a little bit before sunrise, over at Hyster Park in California, SoCal. For the one wave scene, I also waited like 20 minutes or so, because of course, when I'm ready to film, the waves were super small and they weren't like big and vast enough. So I really wanted a way to kind of cascade over the rocks as I was waiting to stage the box art right there. The next part, as I mentioned before, was immersing the audience into theme, right? And the map tiles are either ocean or island. So that's why right away I put the map tiles there with ocean in the background. And I wanted to think about a creative way of transitioning from the map tiles to the next set of components. So naturally, I was thinking, oh, they have these nice sharp corners here. Why not just mask out an edge in the edit and just kind of flip it around? I went straight in front of the camera and just like twist it around. So it gives me some flexibility in post to mask that part out. And what masking means is to basically draw a line. So So normally you would see the studio on this side, right? But then what's really cool is when you are kind of panning with some kind of line that goes across the lens here, you can make a different kind of clip here, which looks really cool, which is why I put in the compass shot right after this. So as soon as I flick this around, instead of seeing like the next part of the beach, instead you go to a completely different shot and you see the compass. So that's what masking is. It's making a layer that you can replace with another clip. And masking takes forever. You have to go frame by frame. And as every single part of the frame moves, then you have to follow that with the mask. So it takes ages to mask. And the next part, we go into the compass scene. So the compass actually was one of the most difficult parts to film because I had to spin this with one hand, right? And then I have to grab my camera, focus on it while the arrow is still spinning, and walk. So watch. That's how much time I had to flick it, hold it in place, walk, take my camera with the other hand, get it centered focus, and keep walking and not lose autofocus. So that took me at least like 20 to 30 attempts to get it right. And also there's a small little detail. So what I did here was I actually started off clockwise for the first compass showing the numbers. And then for the second compass, I went counterclockwise, and that was to just introduce a purposeful disconnect, because there are actually two different compasses here. One is for letters and one is for numbers. These will tell you where to put certain components on the map when you're setting up Plunder. So even though they look the same initially, I wanted to introduce that really quick disconnect to show you that these are different compasses for different purposes. And then we go into the storm. So in Plunder, there is this square tile here. And depending on where you spin the compass and where this lands, the storm will be placed at a certain spot on the board. But of course, if you don't know anything about the game, you don't know that this is a storm mechanism. So that's why I figured, oh, this would be a really cool idea to actually put in a real storm in the middle here and transition into that as I'm zooming into that. So this was definitely part of my original storyboard, and I'm glad that it stayed in, it worked out. So even though I introduced a stock clip, so this is actually from Storyblocks that I used, even though I introduced this stock clip, the overall intention of the video is to focus on the board game. So every time I do introduce generic clips like that, I always try to keep it very, very short, only enough to give the audience a sense of theme. But after that, I just cut right away and go straight back into the board game, which is why I then go into the pirate ship. So now you see here the pirate ship is shipwrecked, right? We see X marks the spot right next to it, sand, and we have seaweed and all this, beach debris. So right away, I start introducing like, boom, this is about a pirate themed board game. So for this next scene, I show the player board, or kind of like a reference board that shows all the components and what is involved in order for you to upgrade that ship. So I wanted that to follow the ship, that way you have an idea about what components are being able to be upgraded, but I didn't want to actually show like the individual cannons and the life markers and the masts and like all of the individual resources just yet, and save that for the part where we're talking about the game mechanism itself. So this was just a very quick introduction and a follow-up to the ship shot. And then we tie in a little bit of the setup with the compass and the storm actually being on the board, and then we go into this dice shot. So this one's interesting, right? I had no idea what to do with the dice, and here's the original clip. It's just bad. Watch. Right? So I have no idea what I'm doing here. I just dropped dice and I'm like, I don't know what to do with this. But it's better for you to just get that shot. And I had zero intention of using this in the final video. But then as I was putting this together, I realized like, oh shoot, you know what? What if I were to reverse this and then mask it so that way it overlays into the next shot? So it kind of works out, right? So you see a really interesting way of showing dice, right? They kind of are reversed, but then as they're reversed, you still see them in the shot, but then in the background, you see a completely different scene. But then this next scene right here takes place at a completely different beach. It's actually over in Long Beach. And the reason for that is because I totally forgot to film the major transition, the pirate flag scene at the other park. So this one was much easier to get to, and plus I saw this as sunset versus sunrise, so I did get a nice little dynamic change to the overall colors of it. So I went to a completely different beach just to get literally like 3 seconds. So it's crazy, you spend 2 hours to film, and then in the final edit it only takes up like 2 or 3 seconds, but I just always love doing that because it's just so worth it to get those details in. And of course we go to the pirate scene, and then we transition into the studio. So those are actually 2 separate clips that I masked together again. So here there was a pirate flag that I just whipped around at the beach, and then in the studio here I had my camera on a tripod as it is now, and then put a pirate flag in front of it, pulled it back, and then from here we kind of just get a restart. So now I introduced the entire board, and I want to show you that it's modular. So I set up like 6 or 7 different ones, but I think 3 of them made up the final edit. And then right after you set up all of the individual ocean tiles, you put this border around all of the ocean maps. So this is the border that is regulated or corresponding to the compass, because this is going to give you the coordinates of where to place certain components during the setup. Another side note is that I listen to the song for my cinematic showcases before I do anything else. If anything, I listen to it at least like 30, 40, sometimes even 100, 200 times. Like realistically, I really do. I listen to it that many times because that's how I get all my ideas for the types of shots that I'm gonna get. And for one part of it, it was a very, very quick drum shot. It was doo-doo-doom. And I didn't know what to do for that shot. It's like, I can make very, very fast cuts, but there would be a little bit too much disconnect there. So instead, what I can do is to just take a bunch of these and then overlay them down so they just fall and collapse, just like that, which would match the beat of the song itself. So I was really happy with that turned out, and I'm glad that it worked and it matched along with the beat there. And in this next scene, like I told you before, for the compass, when you are flicking them and you're spinning them, they're going to land on a certain number and a certain letter. And that gives a subtle detail to the audience saying, hey, like pay attention to this, because when the arrow lands here, that means this is where certain components are going to fall on the map. And in this next part, I know it happens really fast, but it's matching with the beat. So that's where I go straight to the coordinates that was just spun around by the compass. And then right where those coordinates land is where I put X marks the spot. So this is where you're going to dig for treasure. Next part, we go straight into the storm, and to give a gentle reminder to the audience, instead of giving another generic storm clip, I wanted to do something different. I don't know how to explain it, but a lot of times when you see in movies, especially with like techie movies, when something falls into place, or when you insert like a key card, all of a sudden like there are all these red or just colorful lines that go around the key card. It shows like this sci-fi look to them, and it signals that that particular item and card has been read by the computer. I wanted to do the same thing for board games, so that's why when I put in the storm, as soon as I put it into the right place, it kind of just locks. So you get this nice like it has been accepted mechanism. That was a terrible way of explaining it, but I hope you know what I mean here. And arguably what's next are the hero shots of the entire video, and that is the ships and all the upgradable components with the ships. So here I wanted extremely isolated macro shots to show all the vivid details and all the components of the ships and the health markers and the masts and the cannons all back to back. And when you think about pirates just battling at sea, what else do you think about? You think about like cannons firing, you think about being shipwrecked, you think about treasure, and you think about ships sinking in response to an attack. And you might have seen it from my Instagram, but I posted this picture right here. So aside from getting this picture, I also wanted to introduce a video sequence of it in the final showcase, because I wanted to show an immersive way of ships battling. You see actually a bunch of other ships all beaten up and collapsed on their sides right there. So all of that is purposely done to show this battle mechanism that's happening, especially with the whole black smoke, which is supposed to be symbolic of like ash and cannon debris and stuff like that. Then the next shot, again, whatever is not related to the actual board game, whatever is very thematic, I always pull them in back into the mechanism itself right away, right now. So that's why I go straight into the ship shot actually on the board for the next scene. And then in the next scene, I go back to the reference board to show all the resources and then to highlight each individual resource, right? So we have wood, metal, rum, and then finally gold. And then as soon as you see all those resources, then you start seeing parts of the ship being upgraded, like the masts, you start seeing the cannons in there, and then you start seeing a confrontation between the green ship and the black ship, and attack dice and defense dice right there. And then what happens when one of the ships lose? They're gonna sink, right? Only problem here is that I ended up using the brown ship for whatever reason. I had no idea why. I wish I did it with the green or black ship to match the whole battle right there. But that was, again, another mistake that I did. Like, we're always gonna have some kind of regret and some way of thinking that, oh, I could have done this better, I could have done that better. But we just gotta internalize those mistakes so we don't do it in the future. And in the final part of the scene, it's all about plunder points. So plunder points is the game's version of victory points. So that's going to be endgame scoring. And then also forgot to mention that the song is constantly increasing in volume to really build up to this final boom scene, really punch out scene. So at the very last scene, you see all these ships just fighting together in the middle of the storm. And then bam, you see logo of the game and logo of the company that I did this for. Okay, so that is a total breakdown of a cinematic showcase, and that is how you storyboard for videos. So see how when you have a storyboard, you have a plan, you can really tie up and connect shots together. Again, for me, I should have storyboarded better. where I had the whole box art, I could have filmed it all in one motion. If that was planned out better, then this video would have turned out better as well. The pirate ship sinking, you know, not being green or black, instead it was brown. That's another thing that I could have fixed as well. But bottom line, the more organized plan you have, that includes camera shots, the types of shots, the type of camera movements, and what components are involved and what setting it's going to be in. If you get all those answered from the very beginning before you even start your video, it's going to turn out so much cleaner in the final edit. So I hope you found that interesting, helpful, insightful, and as always, leave your comments and questions down below. I would love to hear thoughts about this whole breakdown. Do you want to see more breakdowns like this in the future for cinematic showcases? Let me know. And if not, I hope you all have a wonderful start to your week, and I'll see you all in the next video.